All right, let's jump right in. We're about to explore the hidden story of what might just be the most overlooked and yet the most influential part of our entire body. I'm talking about the human hand.
Just think about your morning for a second. Twisting a faucet handle, tying your shoelaces, making coffee, maybe even steering a razor. We do this stuff without even thinking, right? It's totally automatic. But what's really happening is this incredible virtuoso performance, a kind of complex ballet that our hands perform so silently, so skillfully, we don't even notice how much we really rely on them.
So it makes you wonder, doesn't it? We usually think of our hands as, well, just tools, right? They're like these obedient servants that just take orders from the brain. But what if that's completely wrong? What if the hand isn't just following the script? What if it's actually a co-author of our thoughts, our language, our very intelligence?
And that brings us to our first big idea. Let's call it the unseen genius. We're going to move way beyond this idea of the hand as a simple tool and see it for what it really is, a major, major player in the whole story of human evolution.
Okay, next up, how did the hand become this evolutionary masterpiece? To figure that out, we've got to go back. I'm talking millions of years ago, to a single pivotal change that honestly set the stage for everything.
And that one critical change? Bipedalism. It's the moment our ancestors stood up and started walking on two legs. And listen, this was so much more than just a new way to get from point A to point B. It was absolutely revolutionary because it freed up our hands. They were no longer needed for walking, which meant they were available for brand new, world-changing jobs.
And believe me, this was a long journey. If you look at the timeline, about 3.9 million years ago, you've got Australopithecus. They're walking upright, sure, but they've still got a chimp-sized brain. Fast forward to 2 million years ago, and we see Homo habilis, the handyman. Then comes Homo erectus, with even better tools. And finally, just 100,000 years ago, boom, Homo sapiens shows up with the brain we have today. And through all of this, the hand was on its own incredible evolutionary journey.
So let's really get into the nitty-gritty here. Take a look at the difference between an ape's hand and an early hominid's hand, like from the famous fossil Lucy. An ape's hand, it's got a short thumb, which makes all that delicate, fine manipulation really tough. But Lucy's hand, wow, that was a serious upgrade. She had a longer, opposable thumb that created what scientists call a three-jaw chuck grip. It's the perfect grip for holding and using stones. Her wrist was even built to handle the shock of pounding and throwing stuff. A total game changer.
Okay, and then came the final piece of the puzzle. It's something called ulnar opposition. Now, that's just a fancy way of saying you can swing your pinky and ring finger across to meet your thumb. Try it right now. That movement created the super powerful squeeze grip. You know, the one you use to swing a hammer or a baseball bat. And this one, seemingly small change, it turned the hand into an instrument of both brute force and incredible, delicate precision.
So this all leads to a really revolutionary idea, one that kind of flips our whole understanding of evolution on its head. It's a classic chicken or the egg question. Which came first, the bigger brain or the better hand? Now, the standard story we all hear is that our big, smart brains led to us having clever hands. But what if the evidence actually points in the exact opposite direction?
Yeah, there's this anthropologist, Sherwood Washburn, who put it really bluntly. He said, the brain was the last organ to evolve. Think about that. The idea here is that the hand wasn't just a result of a big brain, it was one of the main reasons for it. The hand was leading the dance, and the brain had to scramble to keep up.
And what this setup was an incredibly powerful feedback loop. It goes like this. The hand figures out how to use a new tool. Then the brain has to get more complex just to manage that new skill. But with that new brain power, well, now even more advanced hand skills are possible. And that in turn creates pressure for an even better hand and an even bigger brain. You see? It's this amazing upward spiral, with dexterity and intelligence pushing each other forward over and over again. And the results of this loop? They are absolutely stunning. Just look at the numbers. The cranial capacity of our early ancestor Australopithecus was around 400 cubic centimeters. A modern Homo sapiens, we're talking 1350. Our brains more than tripled in size. And this explosive growth happened right in lockstep with the evolution of the hand as this master tool user. That is definitely not a coincidence.
But believe it or not, the hand's influence goes even deeper than that, all the way into one of the biggest mysteries of all. Where did human language come from? And this brings us to a fascinating concept, the
the syntax of action. You know, the novelist Robertson Davies said it perfectly. The hand speaks to the brain as surely as the brain speaks to the hand. It's a two-way street, and that's the key. The theory is that the physical actions of our hands might have given our brains the actual blueprint it needed to construct language. Think about a simple action, like chipping a rock. You have the hand, that's the subject. It strikes, that's the verb, and it strikes the rock, that's the object. See that? Subject, verb, object, actor, action, object. It's a fundamental structure. It's like a physical sentence, a story told with movement. The wild idea here is that the brain didn't have to invent the rules of grammar from thin air. It just had to recognize the pattern that was already there in every single tool-using action our hands were performing.
So this physical syntax becomes a direct neurological template for the syntax in our language. That subject-verb-object structure of a sentence is a mirror image of the physical structure of an action. It's mind-blowing when you think about it. Our ability to make tools might have literally given our brains the framework to build sentences. The very logic of language itself might be rooted in the logic of our hands.
Okay, so let's bring it all together. When you put it all together, the story of the hand is really the story of its promotion from a simple servant to a full-blown partner in thought.
So let's just quickly recap the main points here. Your hand, it's not a servant, it's a partner. It's what explored the world, feeding our brains all this new information. It created the tools that drove our brains to grow bigger and more complex. Its actions gave us the blueprint for language. And ultimately, this means our hands aren't just for doing things. They are a fundamental source of our creativity, our problem solving, our intelligence itself.
And all of this leads to one final thought, especially for today, in our age of AI and automation. We spend so much time asking what the human brain can do that a computer can't, but maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe we should be asking, what could a human on Mars do that a sophisticated robot couldn't? And the answer? Well, it might have less to do with that supercomputer in our skull and everything to do with the thinking, feeling, and creating hand at the end of our arm.